Hi guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi Martin.
Hello.
Let's wait. There are a couple of others.
Yeah. I think that's Camille.
This is
Hi.
Hi,
Hi.
Kevin.
I see. So the cloud is in your place, Camille.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's good. Is this also where ClickHouse is? Is this the Azure
Almost
cloud or is this
a
the Azure
different.
cloud? Or...
It's it's Poland one. ClickHouse Cloud is in the other room, Poland two.
Okay, yeah.
It's east.
Okay, I see. It's east. Okay.
Yeah, but it's turned off. Usually if it's turned on, it's the color of Azure.
Yeah.
Hello.
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 Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's just the five of us, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Shane is not coming, so that's a pity. Otherwise, okay.
Well, he was the one that sparked the conversation today.
Yeah. I think you might have overlapping meetings.
Oh, too bad. Anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We can still talk about it. Okay, let's start. So let me remind you that by being here, we all agreed to the code of conduct and also to the spec membership agreement. And with that, let's do a quick introduction. I'm Michael, and I'm hosting this today. And next one is Simon, I think.
Hey, I'm Simon from Apollo.
Martin, also from Apollo.
Pascal from Chili Cream.
Kamil from the guild.
Okay. Yeah, completely. Yeah, there are two things or three things I have on the agenda today. One is the lookup directive, the key directive. I'm going to talk a bit about through that because I made some more progress on this. But there are a couple of key things I want to make sure that we get it right. Maybe I share quickly. So I posted it earlier, but I added it more into the structure that the spec has. It's not fully spec language yet, but it's getting more meat. So the lookup directive is basically a directive without arguments, and that can be put on field definitions. So one thing we discussed earlier is that you can also put it on deeper structures. Let me find the example that we have there.
I think there's one down there.
Yeah,
like
it's
right at the end.
Yeah. First off, so we can put it on deeper structures. Could even be 9 layers deep if you like to. The only condition here is that there are no arguments, so that you can reach to the lookups fields without passing in arguments.
Yeah.
And that's one key thing. Another key thing I'm at the moment specifying, I was just working on that, is like if a lookup is returning an interface, then the interface also has to specify the key directive.
Yeah.
Additionally to the object types.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that also means that we'll probably want to specify a validation rule that specifies that if an interface specifies an interface, no, sorry, if an interface specifies a key directive, then every implementing type also has to specify the same key directive.
Yes.
Can a type actually, because I can imagine a situation when you have a type You just, have it there in a subgraph. It doesn't have to be resolvable through like an entity resolver, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to have the key, right?
But would it still implement the interface? Is that what you're saying?
If it implements the interface, yes. Yeah. But if it's just a type that is like, you can have like two user types, right? Like user type in subgraph A and user type in subgraph B. One has additional field. I'm not sure if it would be like, because there's like, you know what I mean? Like you cannot really resolve it directly, but you can go through some query. But I don't think it makes sense to actually extend a user type with a field, to be honest.
Do you want to share a quick example so we can visualize what you mean? Maybe?
Yeah, like a user profile, let's say. And then you have a user profile only in one subgraph, let's say.
Let's say, you mean we have a type user profile?
Like user and a profile, like user name, user age, whatever, as field, let's say. So if you can have like a user as an entity in one subgraph or like multiple, right? And they share the key, doesn't really matter. But there's a scenario where you could have a user type defined here without the key, right? So it wouldn't be a part of the interface, and it also not an entity, right? But you cannot really add additional field, right, to it. You
I'm
can.
not sure I get the complete example.
No, me too.
Yeah, I can do it async and like validate what I'm saying, because maybe I'm just talking,
Yeah.
Yeah, so the way I specified it at the moment is that if you annotate lookup on the field, on a field, and that field has an abstract type like interface or union type, then all possible types is specified in the GraphQL terms. Basically all implementations or all members of the union set have to fulfill the key, like must align with the key specified in the finder field, has to be here.
Do we already define where the implementations have to be defined?
How do you mean?
Let's say you have the interface node is implemented by many types in many different subgraphs.
This is per subgraph. So the specification is per subgraph. So each a different subgraph could have different keys.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, because of the lookup, right? So when you have an entity by ID, and you have an entity ID, yeah, we discussed this before.
Yeah,
it's
I mean, there's definitely
the node behavior that you basically have as soon as you have an interface. You should only send IDs to a graph that are resolvable through this graph. Otherwise, you have an issue.
Yeah, and it's definitely a topic we've run into and like something we should probably discuss in more detail at some point. But like when you distribute possible types over multiple subgraphs, resolving keys is problematic. Like right now, our solution is to always require sort of at least one subgraph to be aware of all possible types and be able to resolve it. And once you've then resolved it, you can like fetch additional fields from other subgraphs that only know about a subset of the possible types. But ideally,
I mean, that's not possible, right? Because of node.
Well, it's the same with node. Like as long as you have one subgraph that knows how to resolve basically a node ID and give back a type name. As long as you get that, you can then fetch additional fields for the concrete types from other subgraphs. But it's still a pretty big restriction that there has to be one subgraph that's sort of aware of all the possible types. So
we might have to actually go into the ID specification. But yeah,
well, that's the thing. At that point, you probably need to sort of interpret the node ID or other like
that's what we do in Fusion. We expect that the like in Fusion, we expect that the subgraphs are aligned on how these IDs are encoded, and the gateway also knows how this can be encoded, and then we know where to.
I mean, there's few tricks that you can do. We could also always re-encode.
But
and
let's
stuff
not
like
let's not deviate from
go
the
into
path.
this. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
but it's a good point. It's definitely something that needs discussion at some point.
Yeah. I just want to make in the next couple of weeks a lot of progress on the directive. So because from there we finally get into the composition. Okay. So we talked about keys have to align with keys in the same subgraph, with keys on the type, and if interface key is on here, that's everybody agrees on that. That's pretty much it on this one, right? Yeah, only like we don't interpret these first bar IDs. Like you have to have it annotated with lookup, otherwise it's not a lookup.
Yeah.
Also encoded this, but this still leaves open. Like there was a question by Yakov for pre-processing. Like this is up to tooling if somebody wants to pre-process it. As long as it is translated into this format, we are fine with it. That's just another pre-processing step. Yeah, I think that's good. I will ask Benji also to read through it. You guys can read through it. I think it's mostly done. Just needs language refinements and stuff. But like I think from the key properties that we have here, it should be okay. So as I said, I opened one PR per directive, so you can all chime in and comment on there, and then we can apply changes. The second one, so I just started on this, is key. I just introduced it. And this I blatantly stole from Apollo the text. It was good, so I just added it. But I will add some more prosa about keys, what they mean in the overall system, and also a bit about the side effects if you have them on an interface and stuff like that.
I think there's some existing text in the doc that I wrote like a while ago as well on keys.
Can you forward it to me? If you have it at hand.
Yeah, no. I'll have to look it up. It's the one that I originally sent to the group when we started this work.
Yeah, I can. Is it in the Finder spec?
No. It was an attempt to start a specification document.
Yeah, I find it. If you have send it to me once, I will find it. Yeah. I have it. I know.
Okay, great.
I'll have a look at it, and then merge this stuff in here. But this was completely missing from the spec text that we had so far. I mean, it was just basic copy pasted. So I added this regarding your remarks about some directives have some artifacts of Fusion, some from Federation. It's just because like we basically copied them together when we set together with 3.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure because we were talking about the semantics of is that we weren't confusing things.
No. No, that's why I also like open one draft PR per directive that we have now, and in there we completely specify them, and that's why I will give you a final. Okay, I'm done with the text now completely, and then you all can accept or request changes.
Sounds good.
Per directive, and after that, we should have a very clear subgraph specification. And I think that would also represent the first output. Like it's not the full specification, but already a good output that we come together on, okay, this is what a subgraph has.
Yeah.
One thing I left out is the optional argument that you guys have, which is called resolvable.
Ah, yes.
We can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely something we've found useful, but with the lookup replacing underscore entities, it's not relevant, I think, for this spec.
Yeah.
We obviously would continue to support it because we'll continue to support underscore entities. So the only thing that opens up is maybe the idea that we have to specify somewhere that like additional optional arguments these directives are allowed or something.
Exactly, that was my thinking on that, because it's optional and you have a default value. Like you basically it should be compatible. Like somebody that uses this spec to define a subgraph should be compatible with whatever Apollo router does, because you can just interpret it as a default.
Yeah.
And we can call that out as a non-normative node. I think that's anyway useful to allow implementers kind of to add optional arguments.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as they have a default value. I mean, there's always the danger of future versions introducing an argument with the same name with different semantics, but
yes, you're right on that. Yeah, we have to talk about that. Maybe we can find a good way to deal with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's sometimes
Yeah, I was about to say, isn't that just the risk of having the extension? Like in I mean, it's like in code, right? You write an extension to an existing library, and then the library author comes with the idea about this very new extension, which sadly has the same name as yours, and then you're also done.
Yeah, but we want to make sure we don't break existing subgraphs if we introduce additional arguments in like future versions of the spec.
Yeah, let's move that to the end, and then we can discuss these current extensibility points more.
Yeah.
Because that is complex topic. That's also what you're using the link link specification for.
Exactly.
But this could be like a whole new discussion. Shouldn't hold this up. Okay, so this one I hope I get it tonight. Also roughly specified. Then we have the first two, so make sure to comment. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, but the provides directive where Shane came up with.
Yeah.
And I think it is an interesting thought. That's why I was like, yeah, it's really good. Because like it kind of if you look at this is provided kind of, but now from the outside, and you said that the same with it's provided from the inside. So if you come through this path, these values are available. But
it's a little weird because in a sense every input argument, like every argument is provided. Yes. What this specifies is sort of what it maps
semantics,
to.
Yeah, it's kind of giving it semantics. Yeah, it's different, but it can also look very quickly like okay, there might be an overlap. The thing I was concerned of is this here, like provides has fields.
Yeah,
and so far, I mean, this is something that we anyway have to discuss on the is directive, right? How we want to map more complex keys.
Yeah, but I think in that case, we're still mapping a single field, right?
Yeah.
Or
yeah. We yeah.
Or well, another option would be like instead of field, something like to, like something neutral, like. Oh no, that doesn't work with
Yeah.
is no.
Yeah,
No, I
something.
think
It's the thing with the is directive. Oh, let's go to this. Like the like the thing we have to really experiment through. Like for here is it perfect, right? You have you basically grabbing into address and get the address ID
yeah.
here.
And here I believe last time we talked about possibly using like dotted syntax for a single field reference, right?
Yeah,
So, and
I
to-
mean it's something that we wanted to discuss. Yeah,
Yeah.
what we talked about. Like we have to do a trial with that.
Problem is that we
like-
then have to specify path, I believe. I mean, a path syntax. We have to solve this in the spec as well. Here we can just say it's a selection set which is defined in the language
Mhm.
already. When we have the path syntax, then we have to specify how this works. It's not
Well, but
that we shouldn't do it. It's not that we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that this is something that we have to specify how this works, right?
Yeah,
Because
no,
now we can just say
definitely,
field is
yeah.
a selection set and we're good.
Well, but it's not a selection set either. Like we have to specify that it like it only has a single leave. Because it
yeah,
can only map to a single field. So it's not actually giving you the whole result. It's giving
Yeah.
you a single value in a path.
Yeah,
Yes.
also if a field has arguments, then yeah, like
yeah. So this is what we actually did in an old version of our stitching engine. We would have this dotted syntax.
Well, it's
But
not
then
an
you
example
have
with the
to-
dotted syntax, but
Yeah, that's not an example with the dotted syntax, but do we have one? But this is a pass basically where you have this dotted syntax. Do we have it anywhere? No. Yeah, anyway, we use the dotted syntax also in hot chocolate in the past. The one thing is it has its limitations. It's good if you have small things. If you just so it's a good alternative. We have to consider complexity and also like how it works out. So I really would want to try the bit out and also specify around it. Like,
Yeah,
can we
that-
also
that-
use it? Yeah.
What would
Go
be
ahead.
good to sort of take inventory of different use cases, because
Yeah.
so far the examples we've been discussing are sort of simple scalars.
Exactly.
It's different for complex input types where you may actually want to map each field of the input object to a like different field.
yeah, I mean, what doesn't work with paths at all, and I know this is a very, 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 very edge case, but fragments wouldn't work. So you couldn't, if you return a node and you want to specify that this is an ID of something specific, then you cannot spread into.
Have you seen the original syntax of GraphQL by Facebook? They also
Me?
had the dot syntax. Yeah.
Okay.
And you could kind of it had kind of generics, so you could do something then, but it would add more
I've seen that a
complexity.
long time ago, and I don't remember this
Yeah.
part, but it would be really interesting to
They
see
had
how
this
they
select
solved it.
and yeah, there were like it's really 7 years ago, but their internal GraphQL from the first draft they had this select syntax with dots also, where you could on a field say dot select and then things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, like you could solve that, but it would also add complexity to it. The beauty of this is, and even if we have the dotted syntax, we should also have this
Well,
as a
what I actually wanted to say is that I think this is sort of ambiguous, because this is like selection set syntax is meant to return an object. Like you would expect an object with an address field and then a nested ID field in it. And that's not what you're mapping to the argument. Like what you're mapping to the argument is a single leave value. So
Yes,
the semantics are different.
you're right, but also you
It also
can
doesn't
map
solve.
yeah, but you can map multiple things, right?
Yeah, but it also doesn't solve the multiple fields mapping, because how do you know which parts you want as scalar values
Exactly. Yeah.
and which parts
We
you
need-
don't want as scalar values?
Yeah.
Because the problem are things like if we go into have a more complex field that has an input.
Yeah, there we have a
Which
problem
is-
anyway, because you would have to redeclare it.
How do you mean redeclare it?
You would have to shape with, so for example, aliases or something like this. You could
Yeah.
shape it into what you need to have it.
Do you have an example? What do you mean?
Yeah, when just write the input bar, the bar input, and add 2 fields.
Okay.
There you go. And now you either have something as a is field, right? That by chance is has the same structure.
Yeah.
Or you would have to map it. So you could write a selection set, and you can write aliases field, colon,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you could specify.
Field 1 is foo. Field 2.
Oh, I actually like this. I like now I like this more, Martin. I didn't think about this. I actually thought that you specify field colon and then where you want to map it to. But this is also nice.
Well, yeah, but I think you actually want to combine this with dotted syntax, because if you want to be able to specify that field 1 maps to some kind of nested field.
But we probably have to.
How do you propose? Do you have a proposal?
Oh yeah, like instead of Baz, you could have like Baz dot something.
And then as
you can just
but this would
copy
go.
it in.
Oh yeah, that
Baz.
could go. Yeah.
So,
but then again, you have another problem, right?
Why?
I mean, it becomes complicated. What about you would have nested bar inputs?
What
it's
do
probably
you mean?
all edge cases. It's probably all edge cases that we're discussing now. But just if you have now something like the bar input is a flat input with field 1 and field 2.
Yeah.
But what happens when you have an input in the input? Because now there is no graphical construct to have an alias. We don't have alias fragments.
I know what you mean. I'm not sure I would call them fragments, but the idea that an alias maps to a selection set, so you could have like colon and braces, to sort of create an object on the fly. That's something that we've actually experimented with internally as well, and that's definitely an interesting syntax addition that can be very useful. So it might be good to explore that here as well.
I mean, we have named fragments, right? In the spec, in the main spec, there's a discussion, or was a discussion about this, where you can actually have a fragment. You can spread a fragment into a alias or something. Or
fragment aliases, yeah.
Yeah.
There are a couple of
yeah
experiments around fragments.
I think, I mean, this probably requires a whole different discussion, and it might be good to prepare a little by writing up some examples and think about it
Yeah.
some more.
Should we open an RFC document on this, where we all can add? Like we
Sure.
do,
Yeah. I mean,
like,
you mean it's a separate PR?
yes, we have this RFC folder where we can add experiments, where we just wanna this RFC folder. We can add anything in there where we want to have a longer proposal where we can do pull requests on.
Sounds good. Yeah.
How
And we can
likely
explore.
are you actually
cannot-
get this you run into this quite quickly, I believe. As soon as you have more complicated keys, like I don't know, name and last name for whatever reason is a key, then it could
Pascal?
be that you actually have an input.
Pascal, do you want to write something up, like
Yeah.
initial examples that we have, and then
I can.
because I'm busy with the directive,
No worries.
and then I skip the is directive for now until we settled on syntax. So I'm going to through the others.
Yeah.
We have enough.
Yeah. But just to be clear, we agree that for now we'll only support is on arguments, right?
Yes, definitely. Like the things I talked to you about were just thought experiments. Sometimes I just want to.
Before you
Yeah,
delete this, can you send this to me on Slack quickly?
Yeah.
Or just send it here. That's also fine.
Business tech. Composite.
Awesome.
I will try to come up with a few examples with fragments, because I see people using fragments all over the places with requires, provides, and so on. So we have to like cover that as well. And I also noticed that some people are actually using keys or like arguments in keys, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean,
it's also
yeah. Who was that? Anybody? Okay. In the RFC document, you can really go wild, like explore all kinds of things. So just like it's the RFC documents are basically thought experiments. So we can just put anything in there, and then from that we can grab the like also competing ideas, and then we can grab from that what we like at the end.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It
Yeah,
should be
it's
competing.
like
There should be
Yeah.
competing ideas.
Yeah, we did that often also in the core graphical working group, like with input unions and stuff like that, where we just put in such a document anything that comes to mind that sounds somehow feasible, but it doesn't hold up in the reality at the end. But kind of it helps to
The famous-
also very
The famous markdown table.
Yeah. But it helps to verify things that things hold up in reality, or why they don't
Makes sense.
don't work out. Like also
Yeah, it
later,
would be-
it's a good documentation.
It would be really nice if we have this come up with the fragments, because that's for me really an edge
fragments.
case, and it would really help me understand why people use it. So that's
Yeah. I mean, I also did some experiments like with fragments, and also like, do you have but this out of scope. Do you can you have on inputs also like annotations for mappings? But yeah, we kind of just need to know what the limitations are and with what limitations we could live.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that would limit the reusability of the input types if you
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The question is, yeah, but just try it out.
Yeah.
And then we kind of find where this goes. The same, by the way, goes for requirements, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Has the same kind of limitations. So when we kind of solve this, we also solve the requirements things, because
Yeah.
there you can also have these kinds of constructs.
Yeah, I think it would be good to look at the two together, because ideally we'd have a single syntax that supports both.
Yeah.
Yeah, but is this really
I mean,
input?
Did
It's
Simon
really
say something?
doesn't seem like it.
Not right now.
Oh, okay. It just sounded as if there came something from you and then broke off. But okay, all good.
So is really for inputs. So I'm not sure. We should explore to also separate it.
No,
Well-
requirements also for inputs, Pascal. Yeah. The require syntax is also for inputs.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's actually very, very similar. Like this is require. Also, in this case, we also opted for a single field selection and has the same.
Yeah,
structure.
you're right. You're right.
So, and here you
What do
see
we have
also
in-
like
what do we have?
in requirements, I have the example like where you actually require the dimension input, but like this could be like different complex. There could be different complexities to that if you have fragments and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and for provides we have something different, I guess, right?
provides is different because it kind of says if you come through this field, then
Yeah,
these data is
can you
additionally
scroll-
available.
Can you scroll down quickly?
Yeah.
To provide. Okay, it's the
Provide
selection
is-
set. Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's good. It's already separate. That makes sense. So
Yeah.
we're talking about
Yeah.
the syntax for the field selection, which is a scalar, which we have to specify. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I leave both requires and is for now apart and move on the others like the external and internal. That's so many. So I will not run out of word. But that's good. Yeah, but if you have like once the document is there, Martin, it would be great. I mean, you guys did some experimentations also with
Yeah.
syntax. If you can contribute to that document,
Definitely.
the experiments
Yeah.
that. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, with that, we have the agenda worked off. Somebody wants to discuss other things, other topics on the spec. We can do that.
But just one, like, should
Yeah.
lookup be visible or like publicly available by default?
Yes.
And by, yeah, I mean, because, oh, yeah.
I thought about that, and I was a bit torn. But I talked to Martin also on this, and he made a good argument that if lookup is make something like internal implicitly, then we need another directive that is public. But this kind of is then very strange behavior that we on any other case we make something internal, but because lookup kind of makes it internal implicitly, we have to introduce then a construct that we only use in this case.
Yeah. And I also think in most cases, you'll actually want to expose these lookup fields to clients. Like they're the entry points to your graph. You want to have the ability to keep them internal, but to me, like exposing them by default does make sense.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like the experience, like the defaults, let's say, because if you have it hidden by default, that you need to like add another directive, right? So that it becomes more complex, I would say. There's also one thing I wanted to discuss is that in this example you're showing is this like person by ID, right? There could be, and let's say teams have let's call them like lookups, right? So different subgraphs can have lookups for a person type, right?
Yeah.
And there might be a collision in the name of the field, of the root field, right? And if
That's a
there's
good point.
and there's a collision, and it also has to match everything, like the arguments, the return type, and so on, right? So it kind of like I can imagine a situation when you have like a, I don't know, product by ID that is publicly available, right? But then some subgraph will introduce a similar field with the same name, but with, I don't know, different requirements, or like it could be like, I don't know, person resolver, but the arguments are different, right? So there's this like federation, there is no collision because you have this like, you know, imaginary field that is really not existing. It's just that added, you know, afterwards, like underscore entity, right? And then you define the key and you move on. Here you have this like, you know, you introduce something that, okay, could be internal, but if somebody actually tries to add person by ID to make it available to everyone, then it's a problem, right? Or like,
But
you get my
but
point.
how does federation deal with internals? Like
It's
they
not,
could also not deviate, or you
Yeah,
cannot
but-
have, because they are in the supergraph schema, you cannot have overloads in graph.
yeah, but I'm not talking, that's the thing, like there is no overload, but in the federation, it's like by design you have the key and that's it, right? It could be anything, like you just like accept a scalar, and it could be like JSON or like whatever, right? And there's no collision between, because the subgraph itself is like self-isolated. So yeah, I can resolve a user based on this condition. I move on. There's no collision because it's like, you know, under the hood. It's not exposed to other subgraphs, let's say directly, right? For the public schema. And here we introduce something to the overall structure, right? That might be conflicting. I'm not saying it's a huge issue, but I'm saying that it is like, it has some, you know, disadvantages.
You know, it's definitely an issue we need to resolve. I think Simon has his hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about another topic. So maybe see if
Oh, okay. Maybe we should
on
finish
this.
this first then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one
So-
solution would be to actually enforce the idea that different lookup fields, that lookup fields in different subgraphs that refer to the same type and key need to be named similarly.
Yeah, and like this is a standard rule. I think it is enforced by default, or because if you have on query on any type a field that has the same name, it must have the same structure.
Oh yeah, no, that is enforced. But if one is called like person by ID and the other one is called person, and just with an ID argument, I think in this case we actually want to enforce,
okay.
like if they're both lookup fields, we actually want to enforce that you pick one name.
Oh, that's a good point. I looked at this from a different angle, like the problem that you could have two person fields that have the different key sets to it. Like
Okay,
this,
yep.
This
already taken
naturally
care of.
would
Yeah.
Although I will call that out because the key, like in this example here, like you could have something like this, right? Where they match like the same structure, but semantically this is actually the let's use this. This would be actually the address ID, whatever. Then the structure would be the same. I will call that out in the spec.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, the full mapping
also,
has to match as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will call this out, and we could also call out that the fields, if you have a lookup field defined, then the others have to follow that if they have the same field, because like you want the same structure, otherwise you get a very ugly schema.
Yeah. Or one has to be internal.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you deviate from the standard in your supergraph, you can make it internal.
Yeah, that's
you have to this is important. You have to be able to do this. Because
we talk with this finally, we talked 2 days ago about the issue, and Pascal had also. Yeah, go ahead, Pascal.
So you have to be able to have an internal field with the same key mappings, which doesn't trigger the warning. Because you can control where the entry point for the fetch is this way. You can say I have a person by ID, and this is always on the person subgraph. And then I have something else, which is a person by ID lookup on a different subgraph, but I actually want to name it differently and make it internal, so that the person by ID, which is in the supergraph in the first query type, points to the one in the person subgraph. There is a difference between, depending on the entity, there's a difference between where to fetch, I guess.
Yeah, but that doesn't depend on the lookup field. It depends
Yeah, but if you
depends on the field you're requesting on the entity and the rest of the query plan. So I think the assumption is that as long as these lookup fields are semantically equivalent, you can go to any subgraph to fetch the fields you need.
Yeah,
you don't necessarily need to go through a given subgraph for the lookup field itself.
Yeah, because the key is the same. Yeah, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, then you could actually enforce it. You can have the same, but then you would require a preprocessor in case you couldn't change it.
Well, I mean, if you can change this, you could still make it internal.
Yeah, but it's not a hard requirement. We could also say that they need to have all the same name because it's the same thing.
Yeah, if you make it internal, that's just an implementation detail. The fact that it has a different name in that subgraph, like externally, you still have a single name for that.
We had quite an extensive discussion about the collisions that internal fields have.
Yeah, but that is like
it's something completely.
Yeah,
that might be interesting.
Yeah, because in Fusion, I can show you.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, that's the other thing. Like in Fusion, what we do is we don't, like the internal fields, they don't really exist in the schema on the supergraph. We have this on here. Like in Fusion, internal fields are declared as variables for inputs of the resolver directive in the supergraph schema.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't collide as internals. Like you could have the same internal fields on two subgraphs on the same type, and they could mean something different. We would give them semantics as annotations, and that means we don't have the collisions there.
You're right. Because of our supergraph format, we do have. Yeah, they do need to match. You're right.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think. Oh, sorry. Sorry, that was my phone.
Don't worry.
I think Simone still had a question.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is about the field selection scalar. It's a string used in some directives that contains a selection, but
this one?
Yes. Its definition right now is very short, but does it make sense for this string to ever contain things like directives or fragments, things like that?
So like I would say this will be defined with the RFC that we explore. Because like depending the outcome will determine what this thing is. At the moment we just copied it over. This was what we did in Fusion. In Fusion this could have directives. This could have basically the same as a field syntax in GraphQL. Just that we had some constraints in the processing around it. but I would say let's do the exploration, and then we know what this is. This could be something with dotted syntax. It could be complete different syntax. Could also, yeah.
So it doesn't have to be settled now, but if we have this kind of scalar that's a string that needs to be passed, maybe it would be good to have a grammar for that syntax eventually.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
That's my biggest worry, that we have to specify the grammar too. But looking at the examples that we have discussed before, I think we probably have to do it.
Grammar isn't that scary.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not that scary, but it's always,
especially if we reference existing parts of the graphical grammar, we can come up with something reasonable.
No, it's just another thing to specify. That's the main thing. If we can say it's this part from the graphical specification, this part of the grammar, then it's fine. But you're right.
Yeah, but also you have.
It's already not the same thing that the graphical specification. Yeah. It's already something different. Exactly. And also we have to write the parsers. We also have to write the parsers for it. That's also difficult anyway.
but I like writing parsers. But anyway,
Yeah,
I think
it's the same in Apollo Federation. We have field set, which is kind of like this, but it's not really specified what is allowed there or not.
Yeah.
Do you know what is allowed there? So
it's basically this. So as I interpret it, it's a selection set just without the curly. Or?
Yeah,
that's basically the syntax, but there are some restrictions in what we allow.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was allowed the same, like with fragments. Okay, but yeah, we in this case we need to we will define this in the spec as well, because we have also your field set. I haven't elaborated on yet, but the field set is at the moment in the provides directive. So we kind of need to specify then the restrictions that we have on there.
And the key directive.
Yeah, you're right, in the key directive. Yeah, but
there it is different, right? There it is different. Because there you
it can also have fragments. It can also have fragments as far as then.
But is it the same? Isn't it?
I think the syntax is the same, but I think there are different restrictions on the contents.
I'm not convinced yet, because in GraphQL the inputs are also different from the outputs, right?
Well, but key, I mean, it's not strictly an input, because it does refer to the fields of an object type.
Yes, but
yeah, he just says it because it's the key is also an input, right? On the lookups. The lookup field has arguments, and the key needs to correlate to the inputs that you have there in some way or form. But
that's why it's the same thing. I see. But that's it.
You have. But it's a bit different. It's still a bit different, because you're specifying the whole key here or the whole object, and you kind of refer to the output fields here. And on the lookup, you might have spread this key into several arguments. Could be.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? I mean, maybe it's even, we have to explore a few things, because maybe there's even two things. Because the key in this case is fields, nested fields, and fragments. But there's no point in reshaping this into an input structure or whatever.
No. But similar. It's similar for provides. Like provides doesn't allow reshaping or renaming either. It's a way to refer to a set of fields in the current type.
Yeah, but renaming you might have, right? Because you.
Oh yeah, but the renaming is not that. Yeah. But the renaming is not part of the key directive. It's part of the lookup.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On the lookup side, you need it, because you could be over specifying here. This is my person ID. Although on a person, it's still ID.
And then you would use is, and you would rename, or what?
Yeah.
Yes.
But you still don't need to rename it in the string. That's what I mean. When you have an input object, then you start shaping the object, as we discussed before in the example that we have in the Slack channel now.
Yeah, I think that that's why it's good to have the RFC document to explore it a bit, and then everybody can
Yeah.
give inputs to concrete examples, because like doing it as hypotheticals just by talking is very, I think, too confusing in many cases. Like having real examples for each of the cases will make it very clear, I hope.
Agreed. Yeah, but I do think it also points to the need to specify the field set syntax and semantics as part of the spec.
How do
Yes.
people feel like having a just general question? Would 2 arguments be something that would be viable in is and provides, or at least in is? Because thinking about it, let's say is way more complicated on input types, on parameters with complex input types than it ever will be in a key. But the scalar is the same. So that means that you have, based on the scalar, more capabilities than you need when you specify a key, which would be confusing for validation and syntax.
I need to see a concrete example, I think.
Yeah, I will
just write something, because,
I mean,
because this way it's more productive.
Can you just open the Slack that you have opened before, the Slack message there? What we do, for example, the last one. We map to bar input. We map bar.pass to field 1 and bar.box to field 2. This mapping wouldn't be necessary in the key. Never.
No.
But the key has a different syntax. It's not the same argument. It's field versus fields, field selection versus field set.
Okay, we have
in our current name.
Let's really
shit. I see. It's 2 scalars. I thought it's 1. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
So Martin, do you guys have the restrictions for the field set lined out somewhere?
I'd have to check. I know we've definitely made improvements there since I worked on it. But I need to check. Simon might have a better idea, actually.
That's the problem. We don't exactly have a proper spec for this.
No, but we do have some test cases, I think, that might.
We do have some code somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. Test cases are good. I also like Kamil also has often test cases for these things, and they can.
Of information is read the code and find the right person to ask. But
yeah.
Yeah, let's start. I mean, we can do that in parallel while I work on key, where I roughly describe it. We can start also on field set and start getting an idea on the limitations. Does field set has a set, but this, like, the field set has the same restrictions on provides as on key?
I'm not entirely sure. I think there might be some differences there.
So we need to figure that out.
Yeah.
I think the argument of property in Apollo.
So there's no difference in the syntax, I think. Like, it's definitely like parsed the same, but the difference is in what we allow in like the validation rules on top of that.
Okay, that's good. Hey, Kamil, you had something?
Yeah, one last topic. It's a quick one. I prepared an example, but overall, I noticed that in Federation, whenever you mark something as inaccessible, or in our case, it's internal, right? It becomes internal globally. Should that be the case? What I mean here, that if we allow for it, then we cannot really have like per subgraph internal fields, right? Like you mark it here and then boom, it disappears, right? So I get the idea why, but I'm not sure if we should do it. Because the field could be, it's inaccessible, but then there are no owners, right? So if one team decides, yeah, it's inaccessible, it kind of puts this like, hides the field globally. So then one team actually, there is no ownership, but you decided, right? So
Yeah,
kind of-
that's a good point. Like there's no need for like a normal field to be both internal and still accessible. That there might be for lookup fields. So I think we need to maybe reconsider this, or at least think through the consequences. It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Can you open an issue on that, Kami?
Yeah, I will. Yeah,
So because I
It's-
will not
it's open source,
encode
so
it
I
in
will
the
do.
spec. Okay.
I will do an issue,
Yeah,
but no PR, right?
Yeah. No. I'm
Okay.
not encoding it in the first draft of this, and I mean it's not like we can also already agree on what we have there, and then solve these details in a second PR, so we get more traction on the other directives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's these nuances, I think, at the end that we have to polish out.
Didn't we come up with some evolvability argument about this?
Yeah,
as well?
there are a couple of.
I remember when we wrote the validation rules for the Fusion spec, right? There
Yeah,
were
but
some
Fusion has one key difference, and that's that we don't that we capture internals as kind of state, but we don't have it in the schema. But that might be the real issue with internal. So let's put that as a discussion and solve it
Sure.
on the way.
Yeah. I also have to go in like
Yeah, don't worry, we are finished.
Yeah. Well,
everything else goes into the next meeting.
Sounds good. Yeah. Well, I think that was a productive discussion. So
yeah.
Talk to you next week.
Good.
Bye guys.
See you
Bye.
next week. Bye guys.